it's not that the fear is gone away. It's still very present. It's just like you realize that you have some control over some of the different aspects of the things that scare you. What's up, fam? We are back. Hale Fitness Podcast. I am Coach Jay.
Coach Katie.
And
Coach Wendy.
And
Coach Rebecca. I almost forgot my name.
Your name. Awesome. Excellent. Great way to start. All right. So we were just chatting before this, and we have been working with a lot of clients recently. And the way we work with clients, we just really get in there and find out what's going on with their lives. And one of the things that happens when we work with clients, we hear a lot of excuses, right? And the excuses usually fall into one of three categories. So today I thought we would talk through how to get what you want and some of the common excuses that we hear, how we kind of overcome them, some examples of excuses that we've gone through ourselves. And the idea is hopefully when you're listening to this that you will start to recognize some of the excuses that you give yourself and figure out how to get past that stuff quicker. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, solid. All right. So the context of this is we were talking the other day about coaching and was saying, like, what are some of the common things that you hear people say as reasons why they can't, do their meal prep, come to the gym, et cetera, et cetera. So throw out a few that you all hear. So why can't people do their meal prep or come to the gym?
Takes too much time.
It takes too much time. What else?
So much going on in my life.
So much going on in life.
They hate cooking.
They hate cooking. Yeah. What else?
My husband likes to eat out all the time.
My husband won't let you.
I don't want to make 4 different meals for myself, my kids.
I don't like cold food.
Yeah.
Or old food.
Yeah, I can't stand leftovers.
I can't eat the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, don't want to eat the same thing over and over again. Yeah.
I hate chicken.
Yeah, I hate chicken. Yeah, we talked about that today. Yeah. So these are a lot of excuses that we hear, right? And what we were kind of talking through yesterday is kind of breaking these down into categories. Like there are basically 3 categories of excuses that people will make or things they will say as to why they aren't doing the thing that they want, right? Mm-hmm. So for the purpose of this conversation, if you're listening, we're going to assume that you are a 10 out of 10 on wanting the thing that you want, right? Yeah. So let's say that you want to lose 15 pounds or you want to gain 10 pounds of muscle. Mm-hmm. Like you are a 10 out of 10. It's not a mystery that you absolutely want this thing, but you're just not able to get there, right? Mm-hmm. So there are 3 categories, okay? So the first one is circumstances. Mm-hmm. So people will blame their circumstances. And that is, I don't have enough time, I'm too busy, I don't have enough money, or there's some sort of thing that I don't like about this, right? Like I don't like to eat cold food. I don't like to eat leftovers, et cetera, right? So that is circumstances. Mm-hmm. And if we don't get past our circumstances, then you will never do the thing. Mm-hmm. Like you will blame the world for why you aren't able to do the thing. You will never have enough time. Not ever, not once, right? You're never going to have enough money, right? You are never going to have the perfect situation. Would you all agree? Mm-hmm. Yep. So that's the first level. Second level is other people. So you're blaming other people, right? Like my husband won't let me do this. Mm-hmm. My wife always cooks this, right?
My boss makes me come into the office and stay until midnight.
Yeah, exactly. My boss makes me stay all the time. We're always doing new projects. My pastor says, that I shouldn't do meal prep because it's against the Lord or whatever, right? Yeah, strange church, right? Right? But that would be other people, right? When you're essentially blaming other people who's the reason why you're not doing stuff, right? And this is a pretty common one.
I mean, if God didn't invent Long John Silver's, why would it even be on the earth,
Moving on. So
do they have that out here?
They have them in Washington. I know what you're talking about.
There was one I remember when we grew up, but I don't think it's
anyway.
Fish and chips.
Yeah.
Right. Anyways,
sorry.
And then the last is the self, right? So if you look at this as like an onion, people will start by blaming their circumstances. Then they will start by blaming other people. Then they will move on to blaming other people, and then they will take responsibility for themselves. And one of the things that we found is that when we get down to the self, the most common objection that we hear is, I need to think about it, right? Which is essentially another way of saying, like, I don't want to think about it. I'm going to put this off to
It's
another
uncomfortable.
day. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because what's underlying that is fear, right? They're afraid of making a decision that doesn't work out for some reason. They're
Yeah.
afraid of messing it up, et cetera, right? So what I thought we would do today is kind of break down each one of these and our kind of experiences with these, because we've all been through this. Like, we are doing something called the No Excuses Challenge, but we all have experience with making excuses.
Yeah.
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 So I wanted to kind of start with maybe, Katie, Wendy, Rebecca, just start with, tell me a goal that you wanted to achieve or something you were trying to get to. And, what circumstances did you blame? Who are the other people? And then how did you eventually get it to yourself? And what caused you to take action?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I can start.
go for it. Yeah.
So this is something that I've been thinking a lot about recently because I've been thinking about my goals. And one of my goals this year, like specifically this quarter, is to get stronger. And I want like a stronger back squat. That's what I'm using as my metric. And this is actually a goal that I've had for a long time, really since being at Hale and even before then. But since being at Hale, it's been a goal that I've had. And I think in like even bigger context is like one of the reasons why we wanted to talk about this is because like all the coaches are humans too. And so like you're not weird if you blame other things, or you're not weird if you blame other people. Like this is actually like a really normal process and we go through it too. It's just a matter of like, how do you work through it?
Yep.
And so in this particular case, a couple weeks ago, I kind of like had a little bit of like crisis of identity of like, okay, this is a thing that I've said that I've wanted for a long time and I still don't have it. Like, why do I not have it? And when I was kind of reflecting on it, it was like, well, there's this whole period of time after I moved here that it was like, okay, I'm not going to necessarily do all the things I need to do because I'm adjusting. Like I'm adjusting to this new environment. I'm adjusting to be around my family. And like, that's kind of going to be the priority. I'm still going to train, but I'm going to like not dwell as much on my nutrition, my recovery or whatnot. But like, arguably after a while, like that period of time is over. Like I'm kind of settled. And then I accumulated a number of clients. So then it became like, okay, I'm doing the training, but I'm not getting in enough food and I know I'm not getting enough sleep to really recover well enough to get stronger. And the like story I was telling myself was, well, the nature of this job is just that like you're kind of working all the time. Like there's always something more that you can be doing. And, there's just like not enough time of the day because of X, Y, and Z. And so like, let me just get more efficient and eventually I'll have the time to get more sleep and whatnot. But like that time never really came, right? So I was still thinking about like, okay, this has to do with the job. This has to do with the circumstance. And I still hadn't yet.
It's your boss's fault. Right?
That's right. Yeah. Or like, part of it too was like, oh, I'm coaching all the 545 and like, I never even asked for help because the belief that I had in my mind was like, I don't want to ask another coach to like take that on because I know it's hard. Right. And so these were like all the reasons I had for not getting enough sleep, like not eating enough food throughout the day, which is like I was too busy.
So you're too busy.
Busy.
Work was just too demanding.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so, and I think like finally, I mean, like between Rebecca and Jay, it was like, I don't think this is working for you. It was like kind of the theme, I was getting like sick. I had a lot of nausea because I wasn't like eating enough or sleeping enough, basically. And so finally it was just that, like, not from a place of like, you need to change, but like from a genuine place of concern of like, I just don't like, this doesn't seem like it's working great for you. And I was like, oh, right. Like it's not. And so I like did some writing and did some reflecting on like, why is it that I'm holding on so tight to this like being busy all the time mentality is great. And like, this is what it takes to do this job well and all of this. And finally I realized like, and I think this like kind of was illuminated to me because at one point Rebecca was like, take a couple of days off and I'll cover everything. And as soon as you suggested it, my knee-jerk reaction was like, no. I'm like hanging on to that because like
It
And
was
had
her birthday too.
Yeah, and it was my birthday, whatever. But like, yeah, but it's like when I finally like turn the mirror, it's like the reason, like if I really get real with myself, it's like the reason I'm not changing is because these habits are serving me. Like this being busy all the time is actually serving me, and it has served me a lot of my life because it's the way I've gotten what I've wanted a lot of times. It's just like working really, really hard. And it's the way I've gotten recognition from people, and I've gotten praise from people. And so like there's all these reasons why like working super hard has like served me over time. And like my identity is tied up in it, you know? Like I like being the person who's like always going above and beyond, you know? Yeah. And like I take pride in that. Right. And so like when I really looked in the mirror, I'm like, the reason it's so hard to change because like I'm afraid of letting go of that identity of being like the person who always goes above and beyond and like the person who always does the extra things is what it came down to. Like,
you know, it was really interesting as well. During that time, we would say something like, hey, we're making this change that's going to require like an extra 10 or 15 minutes of work. And you did not like that.
Yeah.
You were like, I'm already working. Like, aren't you guys recognizing how much I'm working?
That's right.
And we were kind of like, you're doing that to yourself.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to be doing that.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, it's great that you don't like this, but we're still doing it.
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a good, like, but I think what felt good about like finally recognizing that is like, well, if that's the problem, then what are some other ways that I can like feel worthy, right? To myself, like forget about to anybody else. Like if I'm not gonna like be the person who's breaking my back every day to do the thing, and like feeling some pride in that or some feeling like some superiority in that, then like...
Can I just interrupt you for a second? So you decided, you got through your head like, hey, maybe I don't have to be busy all the time?
Yeah.
When did you start blaming people? So you went from the circumstances. Did you start blaming people besides yourself for the problem?
I mean, like...
You don't do that?
There was a couple interactions
Yeah.
where we definitely, like, I would take a walk afterwards.
Yeah.
And, I would do my own reflection.
that's right.
And I'm like, you know what?
Yeah, that's right. Like I would blame you, or I would blame like, yeah, that's probably it. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
It's the boss's problem.
That's right. Like why doesn't she get it?
No, but I mean, that's the thing. The reason I wanted to highlight that is like, that's the next step.
That's the next step.
You
Yeah.
realize like, wait, this condition of being busy is not a default. It doesn't have to be that way. Why are all the people making my life this way now?
Right.
And you go through that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Totally.
you kind of glossed over that maybe because the person you're blaming is.
Yeah. I mean, what can I say? That's right.
But
Yeah.
but that's why Rebecca's great. She can take the blame.
That's
and
right.
Say, okay,
Yeah.
yeah. Great. It's actually your fault.
No,
but
so this is a good time to those listening to bring up that, I mean, you definitely have to be in a place of, because I can't berate Katie and be like, you're doing this to yourself. But she'd be like,
Fuck you. Yeah.
like, no. I mean, I remember.
Why can't you do that? I'm sorry.
So I bring up this example a lot of like during COVID when I was doing programming and I was just doing it it's like just felt like my life was just writing programming for the gym to the point where I would fall asleep and I'm dreaming of programming. And I started to get upset at you, at Heidi, at like everyone. Like, I think Mike one time was like, well, what would it look like if you were just in charge of the programming forever? And I'm like, I will quit this job.
Yeah.
And so finally, I'm like, you know what I'm going to do? F them. I'm going to like look into SugarWOD and find a programming service because this does not, and I'm ready to like have an argument. I'm ready to just like do this or I'm out.
Yeah.
And it was kind of disappointing because Jay and Mike were like, okay.
Yeah.
Like, oh. But I have a 10-point like dissertation as to why. And they're like, cool. Let's go. So there were moments where I could see you in that place that I was.
That's right.
And if like Jay and Mike or Heidi at the time was like, hey, just do this, I'd be like, what are you trying to say, that I can't do it? Are you saying that I suck at programming?
That's
like
right.
What are you trying to tell me? And I would have fought. So I eventually was just like, I can't do this anymore. And, you know, it takes that.
That's true. And there's that period of time too where it's like, oh, somebody tells me I can't or I shouldn't. I'm going to dig in my heels and go harder.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you recognize that and it's like, all right, I'm just going to kind of let her until I couldn't anymore.
Yeah.
Until I had to have an intervention.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's, I mean, it's a funny thing. You know, this is not a podcast about management, but sometimes you see people like slowly heading towards an accident and you're just like, you cannot stop it.
No.
Yeah.
You just have to let people like, you know, hurt themselves a little bit. And then they realize like, oh, actually, that's when they come back to you and go, oh, you know what would be really great is if I took a day off. And you're just like,
Yeah, that was a great idea.
that's
I'm
a
so
great
glad
idea.
that you came up with that idea.
That's right.
yeah, that's why clients come to us. You know what's really awesome? Eating enough protein.
Right?
Right.
Guess what I just did? I just meal prepped.
Yeah.
Have you tried it?
Yeah. That's right though.
Yeah, let's tone down the sarcasm. All right. Anyways, now you've realized that it's under your control.
Yeah, but the point is yeah. And like it came down, and I see this in clients all the time where it's like a complain brag. You know what I mean? It's like I'm going to complain that like I'm doing so much at work, but it's also a low key brag of like I'm the boss and I've like got all these people and like in our like culturally we are rewarded for being that person who like does all the extra stuff. You know? So it's kind of like I get it. And like whose rules are you playing by? You know? And so I think like taking that hard look of being like, great, if I want things to be different in my life, then I have to create a set of rules that works for me. And that might not be the set of rules that like the society is telling me is the way to go, right? So I'm gonna start valuing my worth and like how refreshed I feel and whether I get to spend my weekend with my baby nephew, right? Or whatever it is. And like that's gonna be the thing that's gonna be like, I'm gonna put my pride in versus putting my pride in like doing everything, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So when you got down to it and you realized that it was you,
Yeah.
that still doesn't get you there.
No.
Yeah.
So then it's a conversation of like, can we change the schedule? And it's like, to your point, I'm like, so what if I was off like one morning? I just need one morning. And then you were like, yeah. And I'm like, oh. Actually, I'll give you 2 mornings. Oh, I only asked for 1, but okay, I'll take 2, right?
So I gotta say, what's funny is when we first changed this, when Christina came on in the Thursday, I remember asking you like, oh, I can take you off. I can do 5:45. I just needed the 7 a.m. Are you sure? Yeah. And I like I could see this look in your face, like you would be disappointed as if I took you from that. I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna
Yeah.
give it to you.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So
But you gotta
ultimately,
learn.
but yeah, like, so that was it. It was like, okay, great. Can I then like advocate for myself or like ask for this change, which is a scary thing to do. Not so much because I'm afraid of your reactions, but maybe a little bit. But I'm more just like afraid to ask for that for myself, honestly. And I think clients go through that too of like, what is their boss actually going to say if they ask for a legit lunch break?
Yeah.
Like they're probably going to like be like, yes, please take it. I see how hard you're working. But like the fear actually comes from like,
Isn't that illegal?
Yeah. It is. But, you know, if you go in with legal precedent, you're not going to get along too well with your boss.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, that's it. It just comes down to like, you're afraid.
yeah, like, and you might be afraid more for yourself and what it's going to do to your ego than how somebody around you is actually going to react. I know that was the case for me.
Yeah.
Like, you guys are great with it. Fine. Right?
Except we think 20% less.
Yeah,
of
a
yours.
little less.
No.
But then that opens doors, right? So now I can get more sleep. And now I'm like, great, like I'm gonna be in bed at 7:30. I'm gonna hold myself to that. And I'm gonna hold it by like, I'm gonna set up accountability buddies who know I'm gonna be in bed at 7:30, right? And I'm gonna text them when I'm laying in bed at 7:30 and take a little selfie, right? Like, great, so that's working now.
Who are you texting right now?
My mom?
I was gonna say, who are you texting? Because as long as it's not me.
I was joking to one of my clients the other day. I was like, so I stopped texting people at 7:30, which basically means I say goodnight to my mom. But yeah, that's pretty much it. But yeah, right? And it's like once you start that snowball rolling, it's like, great, man, I got control of my sleep now. I'm going to start tracking my food because I'm on a roll, right? And it's like things kind of have snowballed for me since there. And now like I feel amazing, you know, but.
Yeah. No, that's really good. That's that's the process.
Yeah.
And it only took you 2 years.
Yeah.
So, Wendy, what about you? Like, what's an example of how you've kind of overcome circumstances, people, and then yourself?
Yeah, so recently it was deleting the Slack app. So it's the app that we communicate with the staff and the app that we communicate with our clients. So I had it in my phone, and then I also had it on my computer, laptop.
So you deleted it from both?
No,
I was like, how do you work?
She installed AI in your brain. It's just
no, from my phone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because
Yep.
I have my phone with
So
me.
the idea is that work stuff was coming in and it would be on your phone
Yep.
and then you would never be not working.
Yep.
Yeah.
Basically, I was on whenever I was up,
Yeah.
pretty much.
Yeah.
So answering messages, looking at if anyone had messaged me. And I think that was the biggest thing. Like, I had a habit of opening my phone. Very first thing I would do is check Slack.
Yeah.
It's just a thing, like not even thinking about it. Even Sundays and Saturdays, like that day off that I would take, right? That I take off, I would still do it.
Yeah.
Even when I was offline, I would still do it.
Yeah.
And that definitely was messing with the weekends, the plans that I had with my partner and my son. I would be on my phone. I would find myself, like any chance, I would find myself just checking Slack.
Yeah. So what excuse were you giving yourself? Like, what circumstances were making you want to do that?
My fear was that my clients needed me, and that thing could be anything small, like I need to cancel my sessions that we have tomorrow or next week.
Yeah.
And the client will get upset because I wasn't available, and like that was my biggest fear, pretty much.
Yeah.
Like not being a good coach.
How did you overcome that?
Well, I talked to Rebecca, and also we also just, I think all the coaches also did this, but we pretty much came up with like the amount of hours that we were all spending. And I took it very serious. So I took like for the very moment that I would wake up to the very end when I would go to sleep. So I pretty much broke it down on what I do when I wake up on Mondays, Tuesday, Wednesdays. And then pretty much found myself that I was online 24/7, all 7 days, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like we talked about your time
We did.
audit on
it was
previous
actually
podcast.
after that podcast.
Right.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
And that was one of them. That was one thing that I would really just be like pretty much work mode the whole entire time.
So you had this fear that like your clients need you 24/7, and like Rebecca somehow broke this. I'm still not clear how you broke the fear.
Yeah. So the other issue, this is the reason why Rebecca was like, just cancel Slack from your phone. Because recently me and my partner, we got into an argument, and the argument was that I was always on work mode. And you know, when he first said that, I was like, that's not true. And he's like, yes, that is very true. You're either on your laptop or on your phone, like checking emails or checking messages.
Right.
And it didn't occur to me that when he said that, it's because I have the actual app on in my phone.
Yeah.
And it was only when me and Rebecca had my one-on-one, and I told her about the fight that we had, and she mentioned that she doesn't have Slack in her phone, and it has made a huge difference.
Okay, so the thing that helped break the belief is seeing that there was somebody else in a similar position that wasn't doing that wasn't available 24/7.
Yeah.
So it's like the equivalent of like someone says they're busy, too busy to do meal prep or whatever. And it's like, okay, here's 5 examples of people that are like just as busy or busier than you that come in and do it.
Yeah.
That's great.
And the one thing she did ask, and it really pointed out to me, like what's going to happen if you don't answer a Slack message from your one of your clients? I was like, yeah, that's actually true. Like nothing bad. It's not the worst thing ever, right?
Yeah.
Like, okay, so what if they need to cancel, their classes, right? Can they come into a different session? Yeah. Do they know the sessions? Yeah. Okay, then you don't need to be there for that, right?
Yeah.
So that's the other thing that she pointed out, but I wouldn't be able to see it unless someone else like outside would actually tell me that.
Yeah.
But in my mind, it's like it's the worst thing ever if I don't answer my messages from my clients, right?
Yeah.
If they have any questions or anything like that.
Did you ever blame your clients or your boss, your clients for messaging you out of hours, or your boss for making you do that?
No, I didn't. I actually played myself.
Yeah. So you went straight to yourself.
Yeah. No,
But you did have this argument with your
I
boyfriend.
did. Yes,
right?
and I did get mad at him for like saying
Calling
that.
you out,
For calling it out. So I guess I did somehow blamed him.
Yeah.
I guess for
Yeah.
calling it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like break down the circumstances, break down the other people. Then it's yourself.
Yeah.
And was there any fear about like cutting this out?
Slack?
Yeah.
Yes, there was a lot of fear.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't sleep that night when I first like deleted my app.
Yeah.
And then the first thing I did too the next morning, I usually just check my messages too the next morning too, just to see what's on the schedule for that day. No one messaged me. No one, not even from like you guys, like no one messaged me.
So then you got depressed.
I was like, oh man, what happened? I wanted to prove a point here. I was sorry to run back to Rebecca's like, see what happens, but she was right. Nothing happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you wake up in the middle of the night and open up your laptop?
I did wake up a few times. Yeah, I did. I was so afraid. Like I was really afraid of what could happen if I didn't answer, the message, right? Any messages.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was my fear. I
Yeah.
guess you can say I would be like a bad coach or a bad, co-worker or whatever that I wasn't answering messages.
Did any of that come true?
No.
Fabulous.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now it's working really well because I spend quality time with my partner and my son, and the fear is not there. I mean, sometimes it's still there, right?
Yeah.
But it's way better.
And even if something had happened,
Yeah.
right? Which, I'm sure there's going to be some point where someone messages you and then they're going to be upset because you didn't respond. It's like, even if something does happen, it's like, okay, great. Like, how do I manage this in the future?
Yeah.
That doesn't involve me being available 24/7.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, maybe I tell the clients, hey, I'm away on the weekends, or, I check it for 15 minutes on the Sunday morning, or whatever it is. That's going to be the thing that works for you.
Which we do tell clients that, right? When they first sign up. I think Rebecca's the one who tells them, like, you're able to communicate with your client, with your coach, but they're also not going to be on 24/7. So
I mean, this is a great example, and both of these are great examples. This is basically like, you have this belief that your circumstances are somehow controlling your actions.
Yeah.
When you start breaking that belief, then you start blaming other people, right? It's like, well, it's someone else's fault. It's my boss's fault. It's my boyfriend's fault, whatever. And then you eventually realize that actually it's just a fear that you have, some underlying fear of some, uncomfortable conversation or, somebody being upset at you or whatever. And usually that fear is unfounded. Like if you test that fear, it doesn't hold up to scrutiny. And even if it does, if you let's say that all of your clients message you that weekend.
Yeah.
I mean, would you go back to being available 24/7?
No.
Like, would you want to?
No. Yeah.
It's like, okay, now I have to deal with that, but like, I don't want to work 24/7.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I love that. That's really good. Rebecca, what about you?
I'm perfect. No, I'm just kidding. So I just, I finished the certification, the Enlifted certification, and their definition, we call it the victim mentality. It's an acquired personality trait where a person will regard himself or herself as the victim of other people's actions, even if there's no clear evidence. And then it's habitual thought process. So you're constantly thinking that, like, they did this, I can't do this. Yeah. And so part of, what we do when we talk through stories is like getting rid of this victim mentality, like it's usually a projection, like they won't let me do this, or anyway, so into reflections, as Katie was saying. So I've, over the last, I don't know how long I did it, 5 months, I've gotten really good at sort of catching my victim mentality. I mean, it still comes up, but every morning I do what I call a daily translation, where I translate the thoughts that are starting to kind of get me pissed off, and I translate it to something that I have control over. So like recently with us changing the schedule, I had to have a couple hard conversations, and, before this, they get upset at me for this and that too. I take care of the coaches, because that I can control and that I can stand by. So in terms of, for those listening, I mean, just if you ever have those thoughts, just say, oh, am I being a victim of circumstances or a victim of, other person's actions? Because you really can't do anything about it. But one issue that comes up with me is I do get really bad anxiety, especially within crowds. But I also love to travel. And inevitably, I have to go to a busy airport or sit in a plane or go places where there are other people. And I mean, for those who know me, I mostly during the week, I'm either here in the gym or I'm at home. I go for walks, which is outdoors, and I see people. But very rarely do I go to crowded places. And when I do, I have to almost prepare myself for it. So within the last year, I remember one point going to, we were in the Cancun airport, and there were thunderstorms and delayed flights. And so there were thousands of people at the airport. There was nowhere to sit. And I had a full-on panic attack to the point where I went for a walk. I was just trying to find a bathroom to go to, and all the lines were long, and the thought of standing. I also don't really like public bathrooms. So I was having a crisis.
Yeah.
I was actually starting to cry. My son started worrying about me. And so I left the situation, and, I blamed the flights. How could they do this? It's somewhat COVID time. This is so irresponsible. My husband gets the brunt of my blaming.
Yeah.
It's his fault for booking this.
Yep.
Yeah.
He should know better. Why didn't he pack masks? He should know this is how I act. So, the first week we get back, I'm I'm never traveling again. I can't do this.
Wait. You had the panic attack and never got resolved?
No, I mean, I eventually got on the plane.
Yeah.
I had to sit there. I folded into myself.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think I even tried to do a video to show myself in the future of how to remind myself in the future, why I should prepare better so I don't have this full on moment. But yeah, it was really bad.
Huh.
It's happened a few other times. I remember one time landing in Mexico and getting off the plane, and a bunch of planes were stalled, so we all got in together. And I had a moment of irrational thought where I turned around and I'm I'm going to get back on the plane. I'm going to go home. And Alex is no, we can't. And I'm I can't do this. And people around me, I mean, it was crowds of people, but they could sense. Maybe they thought I was just
anxious
that.
just hearing you
Yeah.
talk about this, to be honest.
Maybe they thought I was a crazy person because I just got a circle of space around me because I was just I can't do this. So in order to travel, because I love travel, I have to find ways to not blame circumstances.
Have you always been like this? Because I remember you saying that when Sebastian was a month old, you guys went to Europe.
Yeah, I think it happened during COVID.
Oh, that you got...
I got this bad.
Oh, okay.
I think so.
So, I mean, you
'Cause
traveled with a 1 month old.
I know, and
with
I was
a newborn.
fine.
Yeah, that's even more work, I want to say.
Yeah. Well, so we traveled again. We traveled recently within the last month. I packed masks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did you... Okay, so you were blaming circumstances, which you had put yourself into, right?
Yes.
And then you started blaming Alex.
Yes.
Right?
For better or for worse.
Yeah, and then so you went through this whole thing. At what point did you say, okay, this is me, I'm just having some sort of fear? Was that, like you said, was that when you got back, or?
Yeah, that time it was when I got back.
Yeah.
It took me a good week to kind of get over it. And, I was mad at Mexico. I was mad at the airlines.
Yeah.
I was mad at thunder and lightning.
Yeah, what caused you to let that go and take responsibility for yourself?
Well, I had to ask myself, okay, I obviously chose to travel.
Yeah.
I mean, it's my decision.
Yeah.
I can choose not to travel ever again, or I can choose to drive places,
Yeah.
which I don't want to do. So I am going to have to find a way to control the way I respond to these situations. And knowing that I don't have to. So this is now, I'm a 10 out of 10 of wanting to travel with my family.
Yeah.
I am going to have to find a way around this.
Yeah.
So what can I control? I can control wearing a mask the whole time.
Yeah.
Even if I'm the only one on the plane. I can control, finding a space when we land where I'm kind of by myself, even
Yeah.
if it's in the toilet stall. Like,
Yeah.
you know, what are the actions that will allow me to feel safest? And honestly, having a mask, and I bought this like nasal spray thing, made me feel okay.
Yeah. So you've like have some things that you can do to mitigate it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So making that list of just this checklist of things that are going to make me feel safe.
Yeah.
And even in the same way, like, you know, I pack food while I travel. I've done a few posts about like just traveling, you know, with stuff to eat, because, you know, that is another point of anxiety. What am I going to eat when I land? Am I going to be hungry? So I try to plan ahead in order to make sure I don't, you know, run into unforeseen circumstances.
So you're thinking through all the circumstances. And so it's a great example, because it's not that the fear is gone away.
No.
It's still very present. It's just like you realize that you have some control over some of the different aspects of the things that scare you.
Yes.
And you address those things because you're a 10 out of 10 on traveling.
Yes.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good. I have some ideas we'll talk about afterwards. But but like, no, I mean, that's like a great example, because some of this stuff is just like you have to face a tremendous amount of fear to do this thing, right? And sometimes people, like, they think they're a 10 out of 10 until they have to face that much fear. Like, to the amount of fear where you're just like folding into yourself kind of fear, right? And they realize, like, it's actually not worth it to me. And that's one of the reasons why we were going through this is like, sometimes you get to the self and we're talking to a client and we're like, look, you know, meal prep involves this, this, and this. It's really simple. And they are so petrified of having an uncomfortable conversation with their spouse, right? Or like whatever it is, that they're like, you know what, actually, I just don't want to do this.
Yeah.
And it's like, the thing is, that's okay.
Yeah.
Like, you're saying your fear is outweighing your desire for this thing. And it may not always be that way, but it's that way right now. And we're not going to judge you for that. Right? That's the thing.
Yeah.
Right? But it's not okay to say my wife is preventing me from doing this.
Yeah.
It's like, that's not something that we will accept. It's just like, actually, your wife is not preventing you from doing anything because you do many, many things that your wife doesn't necessarily approve of. Right? So, you know, like, this could be one of those things, or you could just say, well, I actually don't want it bad enough to overcome this fear. Yeah. That's really
that's really good.
That's really good. So my example, I've shared this before, but it was when I got banned from the UK, and it was like my business, everything was in the UK. You've all heard this story, but basically, like, I had a business in the UK. My apartment was there. We had 3 suitcases. We were staying with my parents, and we applied for a visa. Visa got declined, and we were banned from the UK. We couldn't go back, right? And I went through in 90 minutes all 3 of these stages, right? And it was just like, this is so unfair, right? How could they do this to me? You know, these laws about, you know, staying places is ridiculous, you know, whatever, like all of that stuff, right? Like, and then it was like, you know, the second level is like, how come somebody didn't tell me about this? My lawyer should have sorted this out. You know, how come my wife didn't sort this out for me? She knows how much I hate filling out forms, you know, just stuff like that, right? And then the last one is just like, well, actually, I mean, I did screw up. I know I screwed up. And now I'm just dealing with the consequences. So what do I want to do? What do I want to do next?
Yeah.
And it's like, it took me about, you know, like I said, 60 minutes to get to that point. And then the next 30 minutes, that's where we planned to open this gym. Because ultimately what I wanted was to be able to run my gym. I didn't want to necessarily live in the UK. It was nice, but I like living here too.
So this happened after you got banned, or like, when did you?
You never heard this story?
I mean, I heard it, but you said it was 90 seconds
90 minutes.
90 minutes 90 minutes blaming someone, right?
So it's in 60 minutes.
Okay.
I blame the circumstances.
Okay.
Like, how could this happen to me? All this kind of stuff, right? And I also started blaming other people.
Okay.
Right? I blamed the government. I blamed my lawyer. I blamed, you know, whatever. Do you have to go?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I eventually got around to realizing that it was my fault.
Okay. But you were here when that happened, all that.
So that was 2000.
She's like, the math ain't mathing.
Yeah. That was
Timeline ain't timing.
that was in August of 2013.
Oh.
Yeah.
10 years ago.
Yeah. August of 2013, all that 90 minutes happened. I was staying in my parents' extra bedroom.
Ah, okay.
6 weeks later, we ran our first class here.
Wow.
Oh, yeah, that's
Right.
what I wanted to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was the thing that caused this gym to be open.
Yeah.
What date in August?
25th, I think.
Oh, I was going to say
Oh, it's gonna be the birthday already.
anniversary.
Well, no, this place didn't start until October.
Right.
The birth of an idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
The idea birthday.
Something like that. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it was August 25th. So that was what happened.
So that was a really action step that you did.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Like you weren't like, oh, I'll think about it. Right. You were just, okay, we're doing this.
I mean, once I took responsibility, then I knew that I had to take responsibility of what was ever going to happen next.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was just like, I had to make a choice of like what I wanted next.
Yeah.
If I had continued to blame the circumstances, the government, whatever, we never would have opened this gym.
Right. Yeah.
If I blamed my wife or, my lawyer, never would have opened this gym.
Yeah.
It was only when I was able to take control that we got to the point where like, okay, let's do this.
Yeah.
And I didn't have money to open this gym.
Right.
So I had to go find the money. And that
Yeah.
was an uncomfortable conversation. I had to do
Yeah.
all of those things.
Yeah.
Right. And so, this is why when people give these excuses, I have no sympathy. I honestly don't. It's just like, there are worse circumstances than your boss being a dick. Like there are worse circumstances than that. There are worse circumstances than having a project to work on or not knowing how to manage your calendar. Like get over it. You're an adult, right? I don't say that, but you get what I'm saying. It's just
Yeah.
like being busy is a poor excuse for not having what you want,
Yeah.
because you always make time for the things that you want, right? Somebody else saying you can't do this is a really poor excuse because you have done things that other people told you couldn't do before,
Yeah.
right? And we all have,
Yeah.
right? You wanting to put it off, like I'll think about it, you're never going to think about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You're just putting it off. And if I would have said, oh, I'll think about what I'm going to do next, we would never would have opened this gym,
Yeah.
right? So, we kind of go through all this. The idea is the excuses that you're giving yourself about why you aren't able to come to the gym, why you aren't able to meal prep, why you aren't able to track your food, why you aren't able to eat 800 grams of fruits and vegetables. Those are just smoke screens for the real reason is maybe you're scared of something or you think it's too hard, right? Let's go solve those problems and then you won't have any more excuses,
Yeah.
right? But in order to solve those problems, sometimes you have to really face down some big fears,
Yeah.
like you do every time you travel, right? And like the real is some people aren't willing to do that.
Yeah.
So let's get down to the bottom of it, find out what those fears are, and then ask yourself, do you want it bad enough to face those fears down? And sometimes, like in the case of your, the Slack thing, it's like actually nothing bad will happen,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Sometimes, in the case of like travel, it's like maybe bad things will happen.
Yeah.
But, the worst that could happen is you'll die. Hey, at least you died while you're on vacation, right?
Yeah.
So if you're listening to this podcast, you're a client of ours, you're going to start hearing some of this stuff. Because I truly believe that all of your excuses are actually lies that you tell yourself, right? And when we can get past those, we can get to the real truth. So awesome. Anything else to add here? We lost one of our soldiers here.
We did.
She ran out of time.
No, it's the truth that she doesn't have.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us. We'll see you all next
All right.
time.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for tuning in. If you like this episode, we've got plenty of others. Go check out this one over here.